We are thrilled to have Ayya Sudhamma with us today, the resident monastic at the Charlotte Buddhist Vihara. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. Before we begin, I'll say a quick homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. So you have studied a couple of weeks on Buddhism, and in that time you probably tried to cover multiple forms of Buddhism, recognizing that they are so incredibly varied. So for me to represent Buddhism is like choosing some Baptist pastor to represent Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Like, it's a little lame. Any from the other groups of Buddhism, if they were to know that I'm here representing them, they would be sort of like, okay, whatever, that's nice, I guess. Because you could drop me into another temple of Theravada Buddhism from Laos, from Cambodia, from Burma, from Thailand, from Sri Lanka, any of these Theravada, even Bhutan a bit, you could drop me into a Theravada Buddhist context. And they will be chanting or reciting Pali with a different accent where I maybe can barely understand the accent. They will be doing their various rituals and so forth. But unless it's an extremely provincial ritual, I'll know what they're doing. I'll get it. I'll understand it. If you drop me into a Mahayana or Tibetan Nalanda tradition, Vajrayana, any of those words for the Tibetan type Buddhism, even if you give me a translation, I may be as lost as you would be. Ponder that. Clueless what they're doing, except for little bits and pieces I picked up here and there. So even in your short course of 2 weeks studying Buddhism from a scholarly angle to study all the schools of Buddhism, you may know more about the other schools of Buddhism than I do. I'm just a little faith-based pastor, basically. So with a little bit of studies under my belt, but not scholarship studies, really. One thing I like to say about the difference in Theravada Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism is that in Theravada Buddhism, in the ideal, which is different from popular religion, of course, in the ideal, we try to do what the Buddha said to do. And the ideal in the Mahayana, they try to do what he did. So we try to do what he said to do, and they try to do what he did. That is, we try to use his teachings to escape samsara here and now. And the Mahayana try to perfect themselves life after life after life to eventually become a Buddha and rescue all beings. There was and the Vajrayana, I don't understand. They have some amalgam mixture of the two. It seems like they're saying the Mahayana version in order to do the Theravada version. And I don't understand them. And when I say I don't understand them, the Tibetan form people smile knowingly and say, yeah, basically you don't. And we're at peace with the fact that as a Theravada, I don't understand them. Because there's more complexity and there's more additional material that they deal with in their school that's just not in the early strata of Buddhist scripture. So they're just kind of beyond my reach. The Mahayana, to a great extent, way beyond my reach as well. There is an adorable little Jataka folktale that illustrates a little bit a difference between the Theravada and the Mahayana. In my mind, I haven't heard anyone else talk about it, this thing, like I noticed it myself, that in the Jataka story and the scripture of Theravada, there were these parrots, hundreds of parrots living in an enormous tree in this forest, and there were branches of the tree that were rubbing. And creating some friction there. And eventually it started smoking. The king of half the parrots said to his subjects, "We gotta go. This is incredibly dangerous. Look how it's rubbing. That smoke, it's going to be a flame. It'll burn this whole thing up. We must flee, go to safety." And so the 500 parrots that followed him, they all fled and found safety. The other 500 said, what's a little smoke? Doesn't matter. This is a lovely tree. Everything is lovely here. It's great. And they did eventually spark a fire when they weren't paying attention, and they all burned to death horribly. That's a Theravada story. The Mahayana have a story of the 1,000 parrots living in an enormous tree, and the smoke starts from the rubbing of the branches. And the hero of that story, unlike the bodhisattva in the Theravada version, who said, "Get out, get out," he said, "Oh, this is so dangerous. All these beings are going to suffer. That's going, the whole forest may burn. I must put out that fire." And so he goes to a nearby pond or lake, and he gets a little water on his wings and he sprinkles it on the fire. And he goes back and he gets water on his wings and he sprinkles it, and the fire is starting to spread, and he's sprinkling and sprinkling, and he's near fainting, and he's just really almost dying. And there's two versions of this, I think, I've come across. One is that all the forest animals end up pitching in because of his heroism. The other is that a goddess is so impressed that while he's about to die from the intensity of his efforts and its smoke inhalation, she creates a cooling rain to douse it. And so the hero is successful. So in the Theravada, get out. This is dangerous. Go. Don't mess around with this. And the Mahayana, stay and save all the beings, and you will succeed. Encapsulated in a little tale.
And so the tree is a metaphor for existence, right? Yes. Existence in this in the world of samsara.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.